Hey, this is Gene. I want to talk about something that Elon Musk said last night on Twitter, or X. And I will say that Nick Fuentes talked about this about 20 minutes at his show last night. So if you don't have Rumble, I would say just um, download it on your phone or on your laptop or whatever. Sorry about the talking. It's very cold here. So I just went for a walk. You might hear my hot tub is got water in it to keep it not from freezing. Wow. Let me see if I get this out. So you might hear that in the background. What happens is my pool, when I put the freeze protection on it, for some reason the hot tub goes down because it's connected. It's a fiberglass pool and everything's connected. So it just puts water in there to keep it above 38 degrees. We got to be getting pretty close to where it will turn off, I would think. I think it gets to 40 today. So yeah, I would watch his. I mean, obviously you can watch this and hear what I have to say. But he obviously says it better to me, better than me, and he talks about historical references and all that stuff. And we both had the same type of thing when saw this last night. I thought kind of like the same thing that Nick was thinking, but then he didn't really think that he is that way. So I'm just going to say what he said. What it was is there's been charts out there for years. It shows this entire world. You see the map of the world on a flat 2D thing. And you see these dark individuals, small people, all these white countries, and you can see that these people come under and eventually take it over. And what we call white genocide or whatever, right? It's happened in the West. Everybody knows this. The United States, when I was born, was 90% white. It's under 60 now. Obviously, London, their capital city, or England's capital city, London, is 36% white. So this is what that chart shows. And somebody said something, and he responded to it, and he said that Jews are white. And I'm just sitting there going, what is he trying to do here? I'm like, is he trying to get this discussion on Twitter to come out? Because we all understand that this is something that we'll see all the time on Twitter. And Nick talks about this. You'll see somebody on Twitter saying, as a white man, we need to be better as a group of people. You know, that we've got to stop being colonialists or whatever. But they'll get yelled at, and somebody will say, "Oh, I'm actually Jewish." It's like they use the identity what they want to use it, and then they'll fall back to their victim mentality and say they're Jewish. That they can't be racist because they're not really white. But just go online and just say, "As a white man," and just see where that pops up, and you'll see all these Jewish people get up there sitting there saying that they're a white man. Even the guy from Friends did it, David Swimmer. He says, "I have to understand about my white privilege in the United States," and then later on, he said, as a Jewish person, that I had to deal with all this stuff as well. So when Elon Musk says that Jews are white, he doesn't just say that. He said they're white, they're peak white, because I guess they had a lot more Nobel laureate stuff and created shit or whatever. So Nick goes through all the history that we actually have between Europeans and the Jewish people. And our God is not the same. Well, I won't say that all the way, but we're just different. But our values are different. We come from a different type of area, and I'm just sitting there watching about this, and I said, I've heard this forever, right? Because forever people says, God, I can't believe Christianity. People believes that Jesus was a white person, because we see pictures of him with the blue eyes and this flowing hair, and that we just pushed it out that he's a white man. And I remember Bobby Graham, was it? Reverend Graham said 40, 50 years ago, he said that clearly he wasn't white. And I'm like, are we going to say now that Jesus was a white man? I mean, it's just absolutely insane that this man said that. The guy that has one of the most largest followings on Twitter, X, and he said something like this. And of course, he's just getting ratio out to hell, right? Because all the Jews are coming in and saying, no, we're not white. And there's so many things. There was a time that Ben Shapiro, I think it was this year, was sitting there on that Jubilee thing, and a black girl basically said, are you white, basically? And he said, well, there's some debate about that. Well, no, there isn't. Are there some European Jews, the Ashkenazis, whatever, I can't say their name, because he talks about that. Well, these guys, they're this and they're that. And he's like, they're like 40. I'm like, no, they're like 1% of the Jewish population. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and defend Jewish people, but they're Semites. If we're being told that we're anti-Semitic because we say something against the Israel state, but they're Semites as well. They're close relatives to the Palestinians, to Iranians, to Syrians. They are from that area. Now, are there some that look European? Yes, there are. And they're the ones that are at the top of their chain. You know, David Rubin, you would think that he looks like it's a white dude, but he's not. He's a Jew. And he will say he's a Jewish person. So it's just interesting that he came out there and Nick started thinking maybe this was some sort of 3D, 4D type of thing to have this discussion that says that, well, if you think that you're this or you're that, then why it's because there's a lot of people on the right that says that they're white as well. And he said basically because they're pale like us. So, and Nick says, well, Chinese people are pale too. Our culture is different. Our value system is different. We've almost been mortal enemies since 2,000 years now. These were nomadic people. They couldn't find their homeland. And then as white people, we basically gave it to them in Israel. We oh, that's your area. That's going to be that. And then they got there and they wanted to kick other Semites out. It's just shocking to me that's supposed to be that smart says stuff like this. But you understand there's a reason for it. This is the same guy that had to be trained to go back to Auschwitz and say, this is what really happened in World War II. And, you know, this is what they do, this re-education shit that they do to you if you have anything against the state of Israel. And this new Nuremberg movie is everywhere on Facebook. It's like, it's coming out. And they're talking about great how Russell Crowe is in the movie and all this shit. And I'm like, we've already had this before. We have 20 or 30 movies every year that talks about this, or they're adjacent to that event in World War II. And it's always pushed and pushed and pushed. And like, we can never forget. Okay, fine. But then they use it to other things and say that this whole country, the Western civilization, was based on Judeo-Christian values. No. No, this idea of Judeo-Christian stuff is relatively new. It's how they, I'm not going to say infiltrated the Western area, but they're definitely, when they come to the United States, they use that terminology. And then I just found out recently, again, all these things line up, okay? It was a Jewish person that put all that stuff about the immigration stuff on the Statue of Liberty. That wasn't there at first. It was like, everybody come to the West. Yeah, come all here because we don't want to be the only minority here and we want to run you over. That was done by a Jewish person. All the songs we know about in Christendom, like White Christmas and stuff, that took his focus off of Christ, were all written by Jewish people. And now we all know that if you say Christ is king, that's anti-Semitic, and they get upset about it, and their groups go crazy about it. And we can't talk about Merry Christmas, and we can't talk about God on the day. So anyway, so I'm like, am I trying to give him? Is he trying to figure some sort of thing so we can have this conversation? That we have to separate the idea that somehow they're white, okay? Because that way that we'll never have our own community, what we actually believe is an identity. Everybody else can have it except white people, European people. We can't have our own identity. And we're the group of people that's being dissolved. You know, it was about 50, 60, 70 years ago, we were 35% of the world population. Now we're like 8, 7. And every Western country that's white is clearly getting smaller and smaller when it comes to white population. Now, there are some birth issues with that, birth rate. But when you continually bring in people from the third world and they continually reproduce, you're not going to be a majority in your country anymore. So when people talk about America first, and Nick talks about this, we just can't talk about what it means to be American. We have to understand what that actually means, what our founders were. They came from Europe. They were white people. We have to understand that that's what it was. It's going to make you so upset because Hitler happened to be a white guy that you can't really be part of this movement. If you're going to be so upset that somebody that looked white apparently did the worst thing of all time, that you never can actually identify who you are, that your group of people are. And the greatness about the United States is that we're supposed to be individualists, and that's why we took risks and we did all this stuff. But when you do that, your Achilles heel is exposed. You never look at yourself as a group anymore. You say, no, 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 they can come in as long as they want to be American and they want the value system. But people don't do that. Groups of people don't do that. They bring their shit and they bring in the United States and they use the same culture that they had there. It's very, very rare that people will assimilate. What happened is, and even happened in this country, white people came here from different areas, Italians, Polish people, English people, the Nordic people, and they had their own enclaves, but they were white, and they still had that culture that's some similar, pagan, Christian. Nick talks about pagan in terms of Christian stuff. So we had that basic foundation. So eventually, after years and years and years, we became assimilation. Now we still have issues, right? If you're old enough as me and my parents and stuff, we used to talk about the other white people. There were terms we gave for each other. I mean, I was called a kraut. I was called a Frenchie because my last name is French. So I was taught like this by Polacks in the area, or the Italians. The words that we have for them, but most of that was more, banter against the different racial groups. But we were still, or ethnic groups. But we're still at the core. We were white. What we've been pushed away from is this idea of this, and this idea of individualism stuff. And that's why people are like, oh, that's communism. We can't all be like that. We can't be part of a community and stuff. No, this is another thing for them. They push that shit down. Meanwhile, they get in and they infiltrate our system, and they continually put this shit down. They put in our academic and say, what is the problem with whiteness? It has to be destroyed, or the nuclear family needs to be destroyed. These are, so people are starting to wake up. And again, I'm thinking to myself, is this just Elon trying to get this message out there so people will talk about it and say, yes, we're a distinct group of people, and that culture needs to be preserved, because when we talk about it, we talk about white pride. Everybody else can say it for their own different racial group. But when we say it, it's bad because, it's the KKK or it's Hitler. No, because obviously everybody believes that Hitler was the worstest person of all time. And you can't have this conversation. And I'm sure we'll see it tomorrow when he's talking to Steven Crowder. I'm sure it'll come up in some way. They surely should talk about what Elon Musk says. And I don't believe that Steven Crowder thinks that Jewish people and white people are the same. And he has certainly gone further and further over to where Nick is. So he says, well, I don't agree with a lot of people. He had this whole thing about Jan Michaels or whatever her name is, the lesbian fitness person, saying Nick needs to be disavowed by the right. Well, she's not on the right. And he's like, we're not going to do that. And, Gerald on that show says, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, I've been pinging these guys for years to have Nick on this team, on their show. And the only reason why they do it now is because he's eclipsing all these guys. He will eventually take over Steven Crowder's kingdom on Rumble. He will. He absolutely will. Because he has the pulse of young men around the world. And Steven is probably too old. And even though he's moved over to where Nick is, and Nick has kind of moved a little bit differently off of that, they're totally different. I think that Steven will, and he'll use this. He'll say what it means to be American, and he'll think that he's probably a little bit. He will never say it's all about race, and we should. But again, Nick won't really say that either. But he should say we should be a super majority white country. That's our founding. Now, anyway, but people say that's racist, but it's only racist when we do it, right? It can be no matter where you go. If we all of a sudden said, you know what, good Lord, there's 2 billion Indians, right? And they're everywhere. And I'll get to that point. But yesterday I was watching a movie that was from Norway. And just recently I saw statistics that came out. 4 million, that's how much there are. 4 million native Norwegians that live in Norway. There are over 1 million foreign-born people that live there now. They will no longer be Norwegian. And that's 25%. And it's going up, and then they're breeding with the natives, and it will never be what you think a Norwegian person will look like. So I'm watching Troll 2. I watched the first one on Netflix a couple of years ago, and they had the same issue back then. And it was all feminist bullshit. The women can only do everything perfectly. This was the same thing, but I like kaiju movies. And for better or worse, this is a kaiju movie. And everybody in that show were Indian or black or Muslim and just a couple native looking people. And I put my review on IDVM and I said, it was a shitty movie anyway, bad. And again, only the women apparently could go. There's a whole army of people trying to shoot this stuff, and then they say, fall back, and these two women come up and start shooting them. It's just a feminist dream. But the women that destroyed everything, that started all this shit, now they have to save it, and a man has to die at the end. But anyway, so I put that on IMDb. Do I think that they're going to actually post it? No. I said that this is the end of the West. This is the end of Norway. Sweden's the same way. And they just won't wake out of their fucking stupor about it, and they all fucking know it. They know when they're at home talking to everybody else that shit's happening. What they thought, what Norway is totally gone. And there's just a flood of Indians going in the West and coming to the United States. And our own president has said that they should come to the United States. And just as bad as the Chinese people, even though they have a huge country. Their cities are 30 or 40 million. And they're coming to the United States. And he wants them to come here because apparently he thinks that our people can't do these jobs. So that's when America First really needs to be talking about America First. And I hope that tomorrow when Nick and Steven actually have this conversation that we talk about this, that it doesn't get bound down to what Nick said 7 years ago or 8 years ago about the cookies, about the Holocaust. That I hope that it won't come down to what he said about women, he's taking your body, your choice type of shit, that it doesn't come down to that shit, that we actually talk about what America First means. Because Stephen believes he's America First, but he still doesn't give a shit who runs our country. Oh, I don't want to give, I don't want to give any aid to Israel, but he's not, all he has to talk about, and AIPAC needs to be disillusioned. And all, he wasn't like this 5 seconds ago. So he's going to where Nick is. And he says, well, I don't know if I actually agree with everything he has to say. And I'm going to talk about him, and we're going to have this conversation. And it's supposed to be not a gotcha type of thing. That's not how Stephen works. He's going to try to get a clip because he knows that his realm, his kingdom is being under threat, especially on Rumble. And he understands that he's losing the young people. He can be edgy with his jokes and the people he has on his show. He has a Jew on his show. And we'll see if he has any response to Nick. But again, Nick will be just like he always is. And I hope that Nick is actually looking at how he actually interviews people. But Nick is just going to listen to what he has to say. And then he's just going to come back and verbally destroy him. Now, we'll just find out if Stephen will allow him to actually respond without actually getting over the top of him, because he doesn't do that. When he's losing a debate, he will just talk like women do. He will just talk over you. He won't allow the person to actually get his point across. So we'll see. I'm great they're going to have this conversation. But back to what Elon Musk said. I'm thinking to myself, he's trying to have this discussion. Maybe he believes down below that we're going to have this conversation, what it means to be of European descent, that we're a culture that's distinct on its own, that needs to be preserved. And I hope that he's thinking that way, but I don't think it is. I think he's either got the call, or he actually believes that they're white. I mean, we're not the same people. We're just not. There might be a couple of them that look more European, but it doesn't make them European. And the thing is, they've used this, especially in the United States, forever. And they use it for a shield to be like, I have white privilege, and you can't do it because I'm white. But then they become victims. But so, well, no, I'm a Jew. Don't blame me for that. My people we've been a victim all the damn time. These are the same people that will get on stage and sit there and say we've been thrown out of 109 countries, and it's never been their fault. So this idea that we've been friends since 17,000 or 700 years ago, that we've always been that Western stuff and we're always been friends, no. It's never been that way, because there's always been animosity between the cultures, because one comes in and they infest it and they want to take over the powers and influence everything, and eventually they get too big for their britches and they get kicked out, and they believe different things, and they believe our Savior is dying in hell. And then they sit there and say, oh, we don't really mean that, and we didn't really mean that, and it's not the Torah, it's not the Talmud, but it's not really that. But people like Josh Hammer and Mark Levin sit there and says that people that look like me, Europeans, have DNA that says they're anti-Semitic. And there's so many people that believe this shit, that say it, that are Jewish, that believe this stuff, that are in power in this country. And then people are like, well, what about Muslims are doing all this stuff? And I'm like, there's a difference between the problem that we have with Muslim or Islamic stuff, and the people have way too much power in our government, and they're not Muslim. There's a couple of them, but most of them are all Jewish. Look at Trump's staff. Look at previous president's staff. They're all that. They have way too much influence. And we've talked about this on this channel before, that you shouldn't have dual allegiance, right? But that's anti-Semitic trope. You can't say that. So I just will say this: if we're going to go back, if we're all going to listen to what Elon Musk says, and clearly Jesus was a white man, okay? So we'll just go from that, and then we could be happy about that and say that Jesus was white, because that is so stupid when he says that Jews are white. And it's like all these people are sit there and say, I can't believe these people are talking about Jewish people, and they're all anti-Semitic, and they show the Final Supper, the Last Supper, and these are all Jews. We all understand that. I'm not saying that your story doesn't have some relevance, but after Jesus died on the cross, I don't care about that anymore. From a historical perspective, we're the new covenant, and we're a different people. We're the Gentiles, and I know what you think about Gentiles, and I know what you call us goyim. And the idea that this thing is not really relevant now. Listen to them in their synagogues. When you go to Israel and Jerusalem, and kids will spit on Christians. We're not friends. We're not the same people. So Elon, either this is supposed to be some sort of thought experiment that you're trying to make people wake up. If you're trying to do that, good on you. People are going to talk about it, because if not, and you just say that because you think this, dude, you're fucking stupid. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later.